Good day, gentlemen. Dirk here with the topic Following Dreams, which is exactly what I'm doing. I quit a great job in a really shitty town, partly because the shitty town part of it outweighed the great job part, along with many other reasons. So I'm back in the western states, doing pretty much whatever I want, at least for a while. To accomplish this, I've had to make some sacrifices. Namely, I had to sacrifice a bit of my income, quite a bit, and I had to give up a certain amount of comfort. In exchange, I've gained an even more valuable resource: time. Apparently, there's a Saturday Night Live skit that I've never actually seen where Will Ferrell plays a schoolteacher or something and is constantly warning kids that if they don't get their shit together, they'll end up living in a van down by the river. One of my officers pointed this out when I told him I was planning to do exactly that. Today, I woke up to the sound of a river after sleeping like a rock in my newly outfitted camper van. So for a few days, I will in fact be living in a van down by the river. Or more accurately, I'll be living out of my van by a creek in the Siskiyou Mountains near Oregon Caves National Monument. I went through those caves yesterday, then did a little day hike. Today, I'm going to do some more hiking after I throw around my kettlebell, who I've decided to name Wilson. It was a parting gift from the troops I used to work with, and as parting gifts go, it's fucking perfect. I'll remember those guys every time I pick it up. Genuine American badasses. A few days ago, I woke up to the sound of another river, then did a bunch of hiking in the Painted Hills. Take a good hard look at the images on your screen. What do you see? What I see is freedom. Freedom to pursue what's important to me, and freedom from what people keep telling me I'm supposed to be doing. Am I reckless? Am I selfish? No, I'm fucking free. If I want to travel around in a camper van, not punch a clock, and find my own way, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. I know, I should settle down with a nice woman and become more domesticated. Like sheep or cattle. No thanks. I think I'll preserve my liberty instead, and if anyone doesn't like it, fuck 'em. I've been working my ass off for what seems like forever, so I'm taking a break. I'm calling it a sabbatical, and that may be how it turns out, as a temporary adventure. But I figure I'm going to run with it for about 6 months and then decide whether to keep going or maybe jump back into the workforce. For now, my priority is to enjoy my freedom and spend a lot of time outdoors. If you've seen some of my previous videos, then you probably know that I'm a big fan of mountains and beaches. In fact, I had a girlfriend way back when who described me as a tree-hugging warmonger, which is actually pretty accurate. I think we can take care of the natural world while also killing the motherfuckers that want to kill us. I realize those things may seem at odds, but hey, I never claimed to be normal. That chick was fucking sexy too, and she had a perfect set of legs. Feet on one end, ass on the other. But Jesus, what a psycho. That thing about crazy chicks being good in bed is true. Still, it was fun while it lasted. Anyway, you could say I'm living the dream, and that's what I want to talk about today. I realize that being a van-dwelling nomad wouldn't appeal to most people, but for me, right now, that's exactly what I want to be doing. Besides, I've lived under far more severe conditions. Those of you who've served in the military know what I'm talking about. I knew a guy once who told me he wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Air Force, and that's great. The thing is, he hadn't finished high school and had a criminal record, among other problems. I was married at the time and told my wife that he didn't have a prayer of becoming a fighter pilot, to which she replied that I was a dream crusher. This provides one more example of the differences in the way men and women think, and another example of why I'm no longer married to that woman, or any woman for that matter. I knew that people with criminal records like he had aren't even allowed to enlist, let alone fly aircraft, so logic dictated that his dream simply wasn't possible. In my mind, he'd have to find a different goal. That was just the reality of the guy's situation. But the female perspective was entirely emotional, if you can imagine that. It became a problem with my way of looking at the world, as though I was trying to break the guy down or something, which wasn't the case. I just pointed out a fact, and somehow that made me a bad guy, a dream crusher. But I had a dream too, the one where you have a loving and supportive wife who actually makes your life better. And I know that some men achieve that, but that isn't exactly how it worked out for me. My dream didn't just turn out to be unrealized, it turned into a nightmare. So now, decades later, here I am explaining to men I'll never meet why I think marriage is a bad idea. Is it because she was right and I truly am a dream crusher? Maybe, but you can probably see where I'm headed with this. The guy I just mentioned had absolutely no chance of realizing that particular dream. It wasn't just unrealistic, it was literally impossible. But there is a chance you could meet the perfect woman and live happily ever after in wedded bliss. I mean, it's theoretically possible. I've seen it happen, though it's pretty fucking rare these days. And if you look at it from a purely emotional perspective, it looks like it's at least worth a shot, right? Probably, but only if your perception is clouded by estrogen. The good news is that as a man, you can also apply facts and logic in addition to emotion. And when you do that, the equation changes dramatically. You can see the marriage trap for what it really is, as opposed to the idealized dream come true that it's made out to be. You can weigh the pros and cons and even figure out probable outcomes. If you do so, you'll be looked at by women as a man with a cold, dead, black heart, but fuck 'em if they think you should gamble your very future based purely on emotion-driven fantasy. Some men are smarter than that. So getting back to our would-be fighter pilot, he found out that it wasn't going to happen, from a recruiter, not me, and instead pursued an achievable dream, to be an electrician. That's exactly what he did, and he loved it. He just needed to make some adjustments to his goals. I'm all for pursuing your dreams and setting lofty goals, but I also live in the real world. We don't all get to be famous and wealthy athletes, actors, musicians, or whatever. And we don't all get to find unicorns either. But none of those things are required in order to have a great life, including the part about finding a unicorn. Besides, in addition to being extremely rare, unicorns are dangerous, and as they age, tend to morph into something more akin to a rhinoceros. The thing is, in modern society, we're constantly bombarded with the message that finding your soulmate is absolutely the only way to achieve true happiness and fulfillment, and so that pursuit is worth any sacrifice. Of course, this is bullshit, as you already know. Most of us also already know that if you pursue that particular dream, then you'll have to give up many, if not all, of your other dreams. But nobody talks about that. It's as though having a woman carries so much weight that everything else is irrelevant, and I'd have to raise the bullshit flag on that point too. If I were to try to put a number on it, I'd say that most people in the blue pill world would value having a woman with like 90 points and everything else with 1 to 10 points. Think about it. If you spend all of your time outside of work fishing, playing piano, drinking beer with friends, going to concerts, hiking, reading, and even having the occasional one-night stand, but you don't at least have a girlfriend, most people would assume that your life is still somehow lacking. It sounds like a pretty good life to me, but people might not see it that way. Why is that? It's because they assume that you have the same dreams that they do. I've been happily single for a lot of years, but people still assume that I'm looking for someone because that's the established norm, and that's what most people are doing. When they find out that I'm not, some of them are actually rude enough to ask me why, and it's telling that these people are invariably women. Men know that it'd be rude to push the issue, or at some level they can totally understand why a man would choose to remain single. I've been told more than once by married men that they actually envy me, and I get it because I was married before too. Contrary to popular opinion, men are born to be free, and when they hand that freedom over to a woman, with government backing and oversight, they're putting themselves in a subservient position to both her and the state. Fuck that, gentlemen. Or, as my Filipino shipmates used to say, "Fuck that goddamn shit." Oh, crap. I might have just offended someone. If so, please proceed to your nearest safe space, or one of those new crying rooms on a college campus. Pet a fucking kitten, hug a teddy bear, or, here's another idea, stop being a pussy. Anyway, when the occasional rude female inquires as to why I'm not looking for a woman, I tell her the truth, that I value my freedom too much. If she keeps pushing, I tell her the same thing I'm saying on this channel, that women aren't worth it, they're too selfish, divorce laws, the whole 9 yards. This is usually an unexpected response, but hey, she asked. Most men and women understand that I value my freedom, but I often get the feeling that the women still view it as selfish. Some will actually say so. They know damn well that getting involved means sacrificing a lot of freedom, but figure men should be willing to do it because the payoff is so enormous. If you tell them you're not, because the payoff isn't actually all that great, you'll probably be dismissed as maladjusted, at best. Of course, the only opinions that matter in my life are those coming from people whom I respect. And I don't have any respect for gold-digging women, so I don't care. I'm just pointing it out for the benefit of anyone who hasn't figured it out yet. The fact is that a lot of men are discovering that there's more to life than women. Much more. Yes, that dream of finding a great one is possible, but what are the odds? And will it be worth the risk? From what I've seen, no. Of course, that's a decision for each man to make for himself. But remember, there's a reason they call it taking the plunge. That's a reference to the waters directly above Niagara Falls, which is why so many marriages and honeymoons happen there. Makes sense, right? So go ahead and jump in. What could go wrong? In my case, I discovered very quickly that the pursuit of my dreams and goals was greatly enhanced by going my own way. For example, I finally learned to rock climb and finished a master's degree. Those are just a couple of examples, but if you take a look at other MGTOW videos and read the comments, you'll find endless cases where men are pursuing their true passions because they have the freedom to do so, and the resources that they're no longer exchanging for limited vagina access. In the case of men going their own way, we're not wasting energy in the pursuit of a pipe dream, and so are able to apply that energy to things that are actually far more important. Things like realizing our potential and achieving self-actualization, for example. Consider the lengths that men go to trying to make their women happy. Consider the resources they expend in terms of time, finances, emotions, and psychological energy. Most of us have direct experience with that, and the excuse that relationships are hard work doesn't carry a lot of weight when you look at the scale of things. The vast majority of men aren't afraid of hard work, but they expect the benefit to be worth the effort. Now consider what would happen if a man applied the same level of effort and expended the same amount of resources on following a different dream. Maybe he wants to sail around the world, or ride a motorcycle across every continent, or become a geologist. All of those dreams are attainable. They'd take a lot of hard work and investment of resources, but not any more than the typical American wife demands just for being there. Think about that for a minute. You're supposed to work to the limits of your capabilities in exchange for the mere presence of a woman. In what world does that make sense? And let me shoot something down right here and now, the she works too argument. Yeah, maybe she works, and maybe she actually works hard, but that doesn't change the entitlement thinking, and in fact can make it worse. When a woman works, she expects a level of compensation far beyond what the market will bear, particularly if she's married. In that case, she'll believe that her efforts in the workplace are so valuable that she should absolutely be entitled to pretty much whatever she wants, because she's part of a dual-income household, even if what she wants exceeds the income of her job and her spouse's combined. Now, I have a strong work ethic, but I've always known that working hard means you get a commensurate paycheck, not a guaranteed lifestyle. As hard and as long as I've worked, I figure I deserve a Hans Christian 38 sailboat, a beach house, and a Porsche. Yet, somehow I still don't have those things, and I'm okay with that. If I could somehow recover the resources I've expended on women over the course of my life, I could do a circumnavigation, ride every continent, become a geologist, and still have money in the bank when I was done. Which is why I'm suggesting that you consider what dreams you follow carefully. The fact is, you can choose marriage or everything else. And everything else covers a lot of ground. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that you need to go monk. I'm just saying that in my experience, long-term, serious relationships have not been worth the effort. I figured that out later in life. The term cutting your losses comes to mind. And I shudder to think what my life would be like if I had stayed married until this point. The way I see it, my MGTOW channel makes me the opposite of a dream crusher because long-term relationships crush other dreams, and I'm recommending that you avoid long-term relationships. That way, you can pursue whatever you want to. I figure that makes me a dream enabler. To quote Big John, MGTOW is freedom. That phrase pretty much sums it up. The more involved with women you are, the less freedom you have. The less involved with women you are, the more freedom you have. It's a natural law, like force equals mass times acceleration. So when it comes to following your dreams, people just need to have some self-awareness and a grasp on reality. I could decide that I want to be an astronaut or Olympic swimmer, but if you told me that men in their 50s don't get to do those things, I wouldn't call you a dream crusher. I'd probably realize that you're right, ask myself what the fuck was I thinking, and move on. The takeaway here is that as MGTOW, we have opportunities that most men don't. Namely, to pursue all of the dreams that most men sacrifice at the altar of, well, the altar. And all those men still chasing after their Nawalts and unicorns, I'd say good luck with that. And dream on. As for me, I've decided I'm going to stop producing MGTOW videos because I've pretty much already said what I have to say, and also because I'm living mostly off the grid at this point, with only occasional internet access. My intent when I started this was just to get my book out in audio format, but I ended up expanding on that, and I've really enjoyed the process. Hopefully, I've managed to do some good. All my videos will remain online unless someone decides that the truth is somehow inappropriate. If you just discovered my channel, there's a playlist containing the entire book, which is basically a MGTOW for dummies aimed at the new guys. But my personal recommendations would have to be Maslow's hierarchy and Briffauld's law for the educational value, and the Valentine's Day video for the entertainment value. Links in the show notes. The way I see it, going your own way is about living life as you see fit by reclaiming your freedom and rejecting those who would control you. This can be a challenge because of the biological imperative to mate, and females control your ability to do so. They know this gives them a certain amount of power, and along with the feminist agenda, this has created a world in which women are at the same time superior and victims, depending on which will benefit the female more. Men, as a group, are a part of the problem because they continue to go along with this in the hope of gaining female approval and validation, or just plain getting laid. Nothing wrong with getting laid, except that now the consequences for doing so can be severe for men, to say nothing of the consequences of marriage. The good news is that men are finally seeing more clearly and solving the problem, at least in their own lives. And the solution is simple. Don't get married, cohabitate, or get a woman pregnant. If you're young or new to red pill philosophy, do some MGTOW channel surfing to understand why. I consider myself a masculist, a term you don't hear very much. What that means to me is that equal rights require equal responsibilities, but feminists haven't ever lobbied for the latter. If they want to be considered men's equals, then they need to solve the disparities regarding the draft, suicide rates, violence, incarceration, child custody, physical standards, workplace deaths, alimony, and every other instance where men and women are not equal. The double standards need to be abolished. This isn't likely to happen. After all, if you can have all of the good stuff without any of the bad shit, why would you change it? Especially when you have so many useful idiots to help you along. It's like getting a paycheck without having to go to work. Men going their own way have a grasp on reality that most men lack because we're reasonable. That is, we have the ability to reason. When you apply that ability to the state of things in the modern world, the solution is clear. MGTOW. Contrary to popular opinion, you don't owe women anything. They've demanded equality, so give it to them. Let them be strong and independent, and let yourself be liberated and free. You'll be amazed at how much your quality of life improves when you do so. As a man, you have rights too, namely the right to live as you see fit. Exercise that right, and let other men know that this is actually an option, because most of them don't have a clue. Thank you for participating in my channel. I wish you all the best. Live free, gentlemen.